Okay, so now it's time for us to integrate everything we've learned from this Bootstrap stuff into our project. So let's go ahead and look at our project's actual base.html versus our Bootstrap example. So the first and foremost, we want to make sure that our CSS aligns with this Bootstrap, right? We have it. Bootstrap CSS is there. Great. The next thing we want to do is, check all these other things. Looks like we have this meta stuff here. And we do, okay? Those are Bootstrap related, right? Now, of course, we copied and pasted the Bootstrap example already, so that's one thing, but we are just gonna go through one by one on each thing that we actually need to bring over. The next thing is this nav. Notice that I have this big old nav thing here, so I'm gonna go ahead and copy that and jump into navbar.html. Now, again, it's much like what we see on our base.html. We see it in here. And navbar HTML actually already has the navbar from Bootstrap. We already brought it in. So if I paste this in here, there's really not a whole lot of different things except for maybe the drop-down menu. So I'm going to go ahead and bring that in, and I'll just put it right at the end here. And then I will change the styling from navbar and bring in the navbar dark related stuff. So bring that down here. Okay, and then change the brand ever so slightly, and that is by using this image in here. And I just want to have that image there. I don't need to do this, but I want it there, so if I want to change it later, I can, right? So this navbar nav, we just add in that right there, just to make sure that we've got our class lined up correctly. And then finally, the search button, I believe I already have that in there. It looks like I do, all the search form, because we went off of the example. So the navbar stuff should be fine. We saved that, and let's go ahead and just take a look. We go back to our regular site. Ooh, it looks like it's the same, but it's not quite the same, right? So it's not actually inside of that container. So going back into that example, how did we do it? Well, we put the container right in the beginning of it, right? So container here, scroll to the bottom, container there, we save that, a refresh. Now it's back to what we sort of expected. I'm gonna break this open, break it down, awesome. One more thing I've noticed, hey, look at this lack of padding. If I go to contact, lack of padding, or margin rather. So what I wanna do is on my nav bar is I wanna add some margin here. So I'm gonna do MB as in margin bottom, and I'm gonna go ahead and do 3, margin bottom 3. So that should give me a 1 rem. If I refresh in there, now I have some margin. It's looking better, right? Of course, everything's not completely integrated just yet because we still have a lot of work on our Django project itself. But the nav bar is there, right? We actually don't need to do a whole lot else. I've got the nav bar was already there, but now what we would probably need to do is just structure our content in a little different way. But I'm not going to jump in and just change everything just yet. I want to actually develop more of the site before I really design how it's going to look, right? So when we were doing our Bootstrap example, we kind of already laid out some of the navigation, right? So I put a sidebar here. I put this middle content here. I may or may not want to do that on my homepage, so I'm just not going to do it yet. This is much more about making sure that our nav bar functions with the rest of our project. That's really the only integration we have to do because we've already integrated it into Django really simply with, setting up that same sort of base template that they have on their site with our base template, right? And then separate out the CSS and then just making sure our nav bar is done correctly. One of the things I do want to mention though is this block content. I'm going to put this inside of a container. So the reason for this is to make sure that all of my content is in this container. It brings in some of the items. So let's go ahead and take a look as to why. That first page is that home page, right? So let's go ahead and find that home page. There it is. And right off the bat, we see that there is this thing for the container. I don't want that anymore. So I have the actual block with the container itself. So I'm going to have to get rid of that one and just keep the row. Just like that. We refresh and it lines back up. Products, it's probably the same in products. It's probably the same in content, or nope, contact view doesn't do anything. Products, if we go into products, we're going to go ahead and change our templates in there. Detail, it's got that container. We don't want that anymore because it's something we're going to use so often. Container, again, don't want that anymore. And then finally, our authentication stuff, we actually probably can improve this by extends base.html and block, do our block content and in block. I'm not going to worry about the form itself, so I'm going to go ahead and copy that. And the registration form looks to be the same. And I'm going to add in, register. And then inside a login, I'll add in login. Okay, we save that, refresh. Now if I go to log out, it does take me to that login page because we haven't really updated that yet. And that's something we still need to do, but our products look different. Everything's just a little bit more aligned in general. So we now are ready to bring in the next portions of Django. If you have any questions on what we did with this integration, please let us know. Otherwise, let's keep going.